Since I was out of town, I wasn't following the news or whatever. I only found out that Peter Falk had passed away last week, maybe a week ago now. I found out because I got a couple of quips that came through my email, about it, kind of jokes or lighthearted remarks, not disrespectful at all, but then I took from that, gee, I guess Peter Falk died, and I have to tell you, it felt a little bit like losing a friend. Now, many of you know that Lieutenant Columbo has become iconic in Stand to Reason, as particularly given our tactical approach, since the game plan for discussing your Christian convictions, which is the subtitle of the book on tactics I wrote 2 years ago, the central tactic is the Columbo tactic. It is the center of the game plan. It is the game plan. A certain set of questions or kinds of questions that you ask to kind of get the ball rolling, to get you into play, as I tell audiences, that will allow you to manage any conversation, no matter how little you know, or how aggressive or articulate or educated the other person happens to be. You do like Lieutenant Columbo. So Columbo has become, like I mentioned, kind of an icon associated with Stand to Reason, and Peter Falk, of course, the actor who played Columbo and made Columbo. And I understand, I saw something last year, and they were doing the countdown of the most popular TV characters, the most well-known or the most famous, or however they do the countdown from 50 on down. So I caught that on somebody's television, not mine. And when they got down to The Wire, the top 2 or 3, I figured Lucy had it hands down. And Lucy ended up number 2. Second only to Lieutenant Columbo. So that kind of gave me a perverse sense of gratification or satisfaction. So I felt kind of close to the character and to the man who played him. I actually have, as I mentioned earlier in the show, an original piece of artwork done by him. He's a fairly good artist. It's a charcoal drawing of himself as Columbo in one of his characteristic poses, and it's a cherished piece of artwork, one of the few actually real pieces of artwork that I own, but probably the one I like the best. Anyway, I saw this obit, an article about his death and life, and I read it, and I thought it was good, so I thought I'd share it with you, or at least a portion of it. It's written by Fraser Moore, an AP television writer, and dateline here, Friday, June 24th, so this is like 4 days ago. And one of the things I liked about it, and I think you'll see this too, is it went into some detail about the character. And there's so many things about this character, Columbo, that are important for me as a follower of Christ, not theologically, but tactically. And there's a style, there's a manner, there's a way about this man, this character, that I think we have a lot to learn from, and that as I have somewhat approached the style of Lieutenant Columbo in my engagement with other people, I have found that I've been more effective in having productive conversations. And so this is why this character is so central. In fact, if you've seen me do the presentation, I actually have the trench coat and it's a plastic cigar, because I have to travel with it and use it a lot, so I don't want to keep buying new real cigars. So I do the whole deal. And I don't do a particularly good Lieutenant Columbo, but I fool people, and so they get a chuckle out of it. But it's the character that I think is important for me as a mentor of sorts. And this author, Fraser Moore, in this short piece here I'm reading to you, I think captures that character. So here's what he writes. The best way to celebrate Peter Falk's life is to savor how Columbo, his signature character, fortified our lives. By the way, keep in mind that Peter Falk played other roles than Columbo. In fact, he had 2 Academy Award nominations back, I think, in the 60s when he was younger. But anyway, the article goes on. Thanks to Falk's affectionately genuine portrayal, Lieutenant Columbo established himself for all time as a champion of any viewer who ever felt less than graceful, elegant, or well-spoken, which is like 99% of my audience who are training to do tactics. I know you feel this way, and this is why you're encouraged by the Columbo tactic, because it makes you feel like if I adopt that, I can do that too. I feel less than graceful, elegant, or well-spoken. And by the way, I feel that way also on occasion. And that's why Columbo is helpful to me. Falk died Thursday at age 83 in his Beverly Hills, California home, according to a statement released Friday by family friend Larry Larson. But Columbo lives on as the shining ideal of anyone with a smudge on his tie, whose car isn't the sportiest, who often seems clueless, who gets dissed by fancy people. I mean, in a sense, this is kind of a... I'm thinking about it now. It's a great picture of Christians. And again, not that I'm dissing Christians, but I mean, Jesus addressed those that would follow him as being the ordinary people. It's just it's the regular rank and file. It's almost not exactly the rabble, but it isn't the fancy, artsy-fartsy crowd. Okay, it's the ordinary folk that saw the value in what Jesus offered and acknowledged their need. The fast crowd didn't. They didn't want to be bothered with that. They didn't want to lower themselves to that. It just, they were above all of that. And of course, nowadays, it's the same thing, isn't it? And either that or they're just too distracted by their success, exchanging their earthly success for eternity. In any event, I thought that's a good way of characterizing it here. Anyone with the shining idea of anyone with a smudge on his tie, whose car isn't the sportiest, who often seems clueless, who gets dissed by fancy people. The article continues, as a police detective, Columbo's interview technique was famously disjointed, with his inevitable awkward afterthought, there's just one more thing, that tried the patience of his suspect as he was halfway out the door. Columbo was underestimated, patronized, or simply overlooked by nearly everyone he met, especially the culprit. And yet Columbo, drawing on inner pluck, for which only he, and an actor as skilled as Falk, could have accounted, always prevailed. Contrary to all evidence, that is, until he nailed the bad guy, Columbo always knew what he was doing. Even more inspiring for viewers, he was unconcerned with how other people saw him. He seemed to be perfectly happy with himself, his life, his pet Basset dog. I guess that's the name of his pet Basset dog, was Dog. His wheezing Peugeot, that's his car, and his never-seen wife. A squat man chewing cigars in a rumpled raincoat, he stands tall among TV's most self-assured heroes. What viewer won't take solace forever from the lessons Columbo taught us by his enduring example? Columbo, he never had a first name. He presented a refreshing contrast to other TV detectives. He looks like a flood victim, Falk once said. You feel sorry for him. He also appears to be seeing nothing, but he's seeing everything. Underneath his dishevelment, a good mind is at work. As a person, now this is Falk being referred to, he was like Columbo. He was exactly the same way, a great sense of humor, constantly forgetting things, said Charles Engel, NBC Universal executive who worked with Falk and Columbo, and was his neighbor and longtime friend. He remembered Falk as a brilliant actor, an amazingly wonderful, crazy guy, and said a script was in place for a 2-hour Columbo special, but Falk's illness made the project impossible. In a court document filed in December of 2008, Falk's daughter, Catherine Falk, said her father was suffering from Alzheimer's disease. Somehow, fittingly, Falk, the perfect choice to play Columbo, failed to be the first choice. Instead, the role was offered. Now, this you're not going to believe, friends. This was a jaw-dropper to me. Especially since you think of Columbo, and he's so completely, the character so completely identified with Peter Falk, the actor. You have a hard time imagining Falk doing anything else, although some of you remember him from Princess Bride, where he's the guy reading the story. Perfect characterization, by the way, of a guy to read the story in that wonderful film. You can't think of him most of the time as anything else but this bumbling professor. So you cannot imagine anybody else playing the role, especially Bing Crosby. Oh my gosh, what a casting disaster that would have been. But apparently, it was the crooner who was first offered the role. Fortunately for us, he turned it down. And Falk took the role. Columbo began its run in 1971 as part of the NBC Sunday Mystery Movie series, appearing every third week. Now, I'm going to ask you, some of you, do you guys remember what the other two mystery movies were? I do, but I had to be reminded a little bit. I remembered one of them. One of them was Macmillan and Wife, but I couldn't think of the name. I just remembered. And the other one was McCloud. So every 3 weeks they'd have run the cycle. But isn't it interesting? You're straining your memory for McCloud and Macmillan and Wife, but there's Columbo right front and center because he was so singular. By the way, you know how much he was paid for this, for his Columbo? It seems like a paltry sum now, but it's $250,000 per episode. That's a lot of money, I guess, in 1971, every 3 weeks. And he didn't want a weekly show, too much work. But in any event, the series was canceled in 1977. Apparently there was another 2-hour movie done. He did whatever. What remains are the reruns being run now in 26 foreign countries, and he was particularly popular in France and Iran. And I don't know why that's the case, but I do know when I went to Egypt last year, everybody who knew who Columbo was. Apparently they made a cartoon out of it. I mean, there was a cartoon Columbo. And so they recognized the character and the trench coat and everything, because I did my tactics teaching when I was there in Egypt, in Cairo, last August. In any event, I will miss him. Columbo will forever be with us, obviously. Peter Falk is no more.